Hey everybody, welcome to 4-2, which is Triangle Congruence by SSS and SAS. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means and practice these concepts for a few examples here. So this says that you can prove triangles are congruent by using the two postulates below. Postulate for one says side, side, side postulate. So SSS stands for side, side, side. Basically, S means side, A means angle. And the order that these letters are in matters also. So side, side, side basically just says if all three sides of a triangle are congruent to all three sides of another triangle, then we know that those two triangles are congruent. Okay, congruent means same shape and same size. Same shape and same size. So we have an example over here showing triangle JKL and triangle XYZ. And this shows that if all three pairs of those corresponding sides are congruent, then triangle JKL is congruent to triangle XYZ by the reason of side, side, side. So it says in a triangle, the angle formed by any two sides is called the included angle for those sides. So, for instance, I'm going to show it down here. In the side angle side postulate, if two sides and the included angle of a triangle are congruent to two sides and the included angle of another triangle, then those two triangles are congruent. So here we have two triangles, and you can see that they have marked that side PQ is congruent to side DE. PQ is congruent to DE. And it's shown that PR is congruent to DF, and they show that right here. PR is congruent to DF, and angle P is congruent to D. Well, it's important to note that it is angle P and Q that must be congruent, because angle P is the included angle. Included because it is created by these two sides. So, and let me go ahead and change color here so we can make a note or two on this sheet. All right. So this is showing that angle P is the included angle, okay? Included angle. Let's use the angle symbol there, okay? So, included because it is formed by these two sides. If you basically trace over the two sides that they are showing with congruence marks, those two sides create this angle. So it is the included angle, okay? On the other hand, a non-included angle would be either of the other two angles, okay? So we have this angle and this angle. So angles Q and R basically in this triangle are not the included angles in this particular problem because they are not made up of the two sides that are shown as with congruent markings. Okay, so these are not included angles. I hope that makes a little sense. Okay, all right, so, sorry. All right, so we have our examples here showing that if we have the two pairs of corresponding sides congruent to two sides of the other triangle, and the included angles are congruent, then the triangles are congruent by the SAS postulate. This says that angle P is included by QP and PR. Angle D is included by ED and DF. And that means, again, that included means if you trace over these two sides that are marked with congruent slashes, the angle that they create is the included angle. It is the included angle, okay? And the angles that are not created by those two sides are not included angles, okay? So these are not included angles. Okay, hope that helps a little bit. So for exercises 1 and 2 here, it says, what other information do you need to prove triangle TRF is congruent to triangle DFR by side angle side? And it says to explain. Okay, so it might help here if we draw these triangles separated. So right now they are stuck together. They're stuck together by a shared side. So if we draw them separate, it might help us a little bit, okay? So let me see if I can do that. If I draw or turn this triangle DFR around, where it's in the same position, then maybe that will help you see, okay? So if I turned this triangle around and put it over here, so show that. I'm taking this triangle and I'm simply turning it around and redrawing it right here, okay? Take this one, it's not going to be there anymore. I'm going to turn it over here, okay? So that this is actually point F, and this is actually point D, and this is actually point R, okay? So this is what information do you need to prove, or what other information do you need to prove? Well, all we've got shown right now is one angle. So we just have one angle. So we have the A taken care of, basically, okay? So angle R congruent to angle F is the one piece of information that we have. We know this piece right here, okay? So side angle side is that we need the two sides, basically. Well, hopefully you can see that this side is shared by the two triangles, RF. So we already know something always equals itself, okay? So that is called a reflexive side. We have the reflexive side, RF congruent to FR. Okay, we already know that. So the other piece of information would be the other side that makes up that angle, which is going to be RT, and that would be congruent to FD. So we would need to know that RT was congruent to FD. So let's make some notes about that here in the problem. We know that RF is congruent to FR because it is the same side, or the reflexive side, okay, a shared part of the triangles. Okay, so we would need to know that RT is congruent to FD in order to use side angle side. SAS congruence. Okay, all right, so let's look at number 2. Number 2 wants, what other information do you need to prove triangle ABC congruent to triangle DEF? And again, these are not drawn the same way. So starting off, if I could turn one of them over so that they're turned the same way, then that might be super helpful to see what we're doing here, okay? So I've got DEF right here already. So if I drew triangle ABC in the exact same position, then that might help me out here, okay? So I'm going to try to duplicate this figure with the accuracy of a surgeon's hand. Nope, I can't even fake that. All right, so let me get rid of that. Okay, try to do this a little bit better. There we go. That is a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to take this triangle and I'm going to turn it over to here. So this one won't be there anymore, okay? So that I can look at these things in much the same way. Okay, so I'm going to change over to text here and just kind of transpose, well, I'm going to put the slashes on there first. Transpose my numbers or letters here. Okay, so that's going to be the same slash as that. Okay, now I'm looking at my text here. So B was that what looks like a right angle over here. I say what looks like because we don't really know for sure that it's a right angle. And that single slash was on side AB, which means this is going to be the letter A, which means this will be the letter C. So now that we have them turned exactly the same way, we can look and see, well, what else do we need? Okay, so we have the fact that we have the two sides. We have the two sides shown here that are already congruent. So we have this side and this side shown as congruent, okay? And we have this side and this side on this. So those are the two sides that we have on those triangles. So we have S and S already taken care of. So the other piece of information that we need is a pair of angles, and they have to be the included angles. So it has to be the angle that those two sides that have the congruent marks, it has to be the angle that those two sides create. that they come together to form, okay? They come together to form angles E and angle B. So what we need to know then, we would need to know that the included angles E and B are congruent to each other in order to use side angle side congruence. Okay, so there's a little introduction to side angle side congruence. I hope that does help a little. So we're going to now look at a few more practice problems on this one. Okay, first of all, we are not worrying about proofs at this time, so we're going to omit a couple of these problems. I hope that's going to be okay with y'all. We are going to omit number 3. You're welcome. Okay, loading. Okay, and we're going to do 4, 5, and 6, but we are going to omit 7 and 8 because those are proofs also. Okay, and right now we really just want to get a grasp for the skill and not worry so much at this point about proofs. We want to just get a grasp for what is SSS and what is SAS and when can I use them. That's a whole lot more of a concrete concept that we can focus on right now. Okay, so for 4, 5, and 6, this says, would you use side, side, side or side, angle, side to prove triangle congruence in these situations? If there is not enough information to prove the triangle's congruent by side, side, side or side, angle, side, write not enough information and explain your answer. Okay? Well, you can see on number 4, hopefully you can see that I have one pair of sides shown congruent and one angle shown congruent in each triangle. I also hope that you can see that these two triangles share side QC. They share side QC, so that is going to be a reflexive side, so I can mark that side congruent, okay? I'm not going to make notes here. We have a reflexive side. Oops. QC. But we do not have the included angles marked congruent. So since we do not have a third side, we can't, since we don't know for sure that PC is congruent to QM, then we cannot mark those sides congruent. And since we do not have the included angles marked congruent, then we cannot use SAS, okay? So since we do not have the included angles marked congruent, we cannot use side angle side. And since we do not know that side PC is congruent to side MQ, then we cannot use SSS. So for number 4, we have not enough information to prove congruence. Okay. All right, so let's look at a couple more here. I'm going to separate these problems just so I don't run into each other, okay? And let's pick another color. Let's pick another color for 5. Let's go green, okay? All right, so let's look and see what we have here on number 5. On number 5 here, I see that I have one pair of angles shown congruent and I have one side. Well, that's only 2 pieces of information. All we have is one pair of sides and one pair of angles. And 2 pieces of information is not enough. As you can see here, we need 3 pieces of information and we need the correct information, okay? So we can go ahead and make notes here on number 5 then that we only have one pair of angles congruent and one pair of sides congruent. So not enough information to prove congruence again. Okay, so there's 2 not enough information ones. All right. Let's go ahead and separate again with a line to make sure that we are keeping things apart and keeping things straight here. And then all we have left to look at is number 6. So we're going to switch again here. Go red. Okay. And let's look and see what we have here in figure 6. We have 2 sides, but we don't have the third side, and we don't have any angles. So there's not enough information on any of these. Okay, so on 6 we only have 2 sides, and side is not enough to prove congruence. And we don't have any of the angles marked, so again, we do not have enough information. Okay? We only have 2 pairs of sides marked congruent. And no angles. So, not enough information to prove congruence. Okay. Well, it was underwhelming. So looking at 9 and 10 here, let's see what these look like. For my in-person kids, this is not on your notes, but for the virtual kids, these are on the sheets that you're looking at. So 9 says a carpenter is building a support for a bird feeder. He wants the triangles on either side of the vertical post to be congruent. He measures and finds that, so he can put some markings on there. He says he measures and finds that AB is congruent to DE and AC is congruent to DF. What would he need to prove, or to measure to prove that the triangles are congruent using SAS? Well, in order to use SAS, he would need this included angle. So he would need to know that A is congruent to angle D, okay? So to use SAS, he would need to know, he would need to know that angle A is congruent to angle D. To use SSS, obviously he would need that third pair of sides. He would need to know that BC is congruent to EF. Okay, so there's the missing information that he would need in order to use those 2 methods. 10 says an artist is drawing 2 triangles. She draws each so that the sides are 4 and 5 and an angle is 55. Are her triangles congruent? Well, it depends on if that's the included angle. She draws each so that 4 and 5. Okay, it depends on if 55 degrees is the angle that is made up with the 4-inch and 5-inch sides. It would have to be the included angle in order to work using side angle side. Okay, so there's more practice on this, obviously, in your practice and homework pages, and we will talk about this further. I'm going to go ahead and save this and look at lesson 4.3.